If our listeners are joining us when this episode is released, it is the end of the school year here in Ontario. Yep. I think this episode comes out the very last week of school. So people are probably either in two different headspaces. Either they're pumped and so excited because this break is, just around the corner, or they are totally burnt out and exhausted.
I was going to say heartbroken.
Or both.
The year
Right?
Yeah.
Like I am pumped that we are coming to the end, but I'm at the same time, I'm burnt out, but that makes me pumped for the future.
Well, something I always felt as a classroom teacher, but also working in the district office was like you got to this finish line and it's like almost like the excitement for the finish line is where you used up all your excitement and energy. And then you actually get to that finish line. And then next thing you know, you're in summer and you're like, this is it. This is what it is. And the time just flies by, So today, I think what we're going to be talking about is like, how can we best prepare ourselves to not only get caught up, catch our breath, get that energy back, get that motivation back, but also set us up for some quick wins along the way so that, I think in doing so, you'll actually find yourself more refreshed faster than, say, doing a whole lot of nothing for maybe too long.
For sure. So like what small commitments can we make, over the summer that, like you're saying, Kyle, sets us up for success, but also makes us feel good about going into the year? Because I like to think of it that way, is like, what do I prepare? I know that I'm burnt out now, but what could I prepare now so that I feel, so that after my rejuvenation period, after my relaxing time, after the time that like brings me back, that when I come to start the school year, I'm already one step ahead and I'm already kind of streamlining the practices, the pieces, the components, all kind of where I want to go anyway. Like I always felt like doing that at the end of the year is like, yeah, we're burnt out, but it's like, what can I do to like, so that when I come in, I'm like, and all summer, I'm like, oh, we're good. I'm good because I did some pre-practice work coming into the year to like hit the ground running.
One thing that I always like to do at this time of year, assuming I was staying in the same classroom, it's like I didn't rush out the door the last day. I actually stayed a few days after because I wanted to know that I was coming back to a nice space. Like I didn't want to leave chaos, I wanted to know that way because it would be harder to come back in August if I just walked out on the last day and left everything, kind of disorganized. So I tried to always commit to taking the time to leave my space in a way that would be welcoming when I returned.
Nice. I like this idea. I did something similar, but I tried to make it so that it was ready to go pretty much by the end of that last day because I did not want to be coming back. So there's some people out there, some are like Yvette and they're like, yes, I'm going to come back for a couple days. And then some people are like me and they're like, no, I am not coming back after that last day. But I think the end result though, of sort of getting yourself back, like getting the classroom back in a position where things are in good standing. And of course, over the summer, you're probably going to think of some things that you want to change along the way, but being able to come back to a clean, organized space in order to implement those changes is a lot more effective than, say, walking into chaos and then maybe wasting all that time just sort of organizing things and then maybe not getting to put those changes into effect like you had envisioned.
Yeah, I see both sides. Now, I think that there's like two ends to this. Like there's two sides to this because I know there's folks right now going like, I'm not going to think about this until the end of the summer. And I know I'm going to go back in a few days early anyway to prep and get stuff ready. And like, I have that block of time. But then there's the other side. It's like, I see your benefit here of like, let me just get ready now because then I don't have to think about it over the course of the summer and my mind is mentally freed up. Like that storage space is like that suitcase weighing you down is gone. And because I said this here on the podcast many times in the summer when we have these summer type episodes, I think we said it maybe last week when we were talking about like the August, for us here in Ontario, when like August hits like halfway through the summer. But then it's like, now I'm going to start thinking about going back to school, even though I still got a month of vacation time left. Like it's like the longest Sunday night ever because you're just constantly thinking about what that first week is going to look like, what that first day is. But if you do all those things up front, Like, and you can know that I'm ready to walk in the door and just give her. And I've done all the prep work. Like, I'm a big fan of like compartmentalizing. Like, I would write notes to myself that like, and put it in my phone and have it like all of a sudden queue up on the first day of August to say, remember, you're good. Like, here's the things that you already planned for. And then have
I
it
like
pop
that.
up again in like, the week before. Just remember, you're good. Here's the things you already prepped, because I will forget. And that's the part of like, I've learned along the way is like, if I write myself a note, then future John will get that information. And in between, John doesn't have to remember that stuff. And
Hmm.
it can be, and when I do that, it's like almost like my brain forgets about all those things and it's gone because I know that I wrote the note. I don't know what's on the note. Like, I have no memory of what's on the note, but I know that the note, if I look at it, will remind me. And that all of a sudden just like completely changes my mental bandwidth for the summer or for any time like this. I actually do this during the week as well. Like in a work week, is like future John will do this part, and I'll write my notes about what I want to do then, but I want to do it now, but I know about it now. So I'll write myself that note. And then all of a sudden now that note comes and I'm like, yep, I'm good. Or here are the things I still need to do. But then I don't have that longest Sunday night ever effect anymore.
I like it. I think what I'm hearing from you is it's almost like that give you permission to not have to worry or stress
Totally.
about those things, that you had taken care of them, you'd button them up, because what would happen otherwise is likely, John, you're in, pull the trailer to the next provincial park in the summer, and you probably wake
Right.
up one night and you go, shoot, what about this?
Yeah.
Or what about that? And you start to think and you start to ruminate on these things. So I think that's a great idea. So we're talking about some of the things that you can do before you leave. Let's start sort of segueing into like, what are some of the things that we can potentially do? And I want to be very cautious as we start to enter into this realm, is that summer is your summer. You have earned that summer. Okay. So anything we say here is not a thou shalt, or you should be, or you shouldn't be this. That is your summer. But I do know that we all tend to have these things that we throughout a school year kind of push off because we're busy, because there's too much going on, because there's lots of stress. But then we get to summer and sometimes we never get around to it. It almost makes it even more stressful because you had planned to do it in your mind, but maybe not set clear enough outline for yourself as to how you're going to accomplish these things without it being a major interference to your earned vacation. Yvette, what have you done in the past so that you can stay productive, but not actually stressed? Like, this shouldn't feel like work. It should feel like progress. It should feel like rewarding. What are your go-to moves that you've used?
I think that what you said is so important. I like to protect my quiet mind. So, because I don't have a quiet mind most of the time, I'm always thinking about something else or grappling with an idea while I'm having a conversation, while I'm reading, while I'm doing whatever it is. I do not have a quiet mind. So I try to protect my quiet mind in the summer. But like you said, it's like, but I still want to be inspired come September. Like, I think sometimes I get into a rut by the end of the year where I get sometimes negative. It's like, I feel all of the maybe constraints start piling up, and I need the summertime to step back from that and to broaden my perspective. So what I like to do in the summer, and again, this is just me, not to say anybody else this would work for, I like to get outside my network in the summer. So what I mean by that is you tend to be influenced by the same people throughout the year, right? Those are the people that are within your network. And so I always like to take an opportunity in the summer to get outside of my network and hear a different perspective. So I've been fortunate, to be able to do some summer symposiums or summer conferences. And what I love about those is that they're my choice. Like, I'm choosing to be there because I need to get outside of my network and hear different perspectives, different experiences. And I also feel like when I do those in the summer, I'm not planning for a supply teacher. I'm not thinking of, I get to show up, I get to enjoy that learning outside of my network, and then I get to go home and enjoy the sunshine in the evening, and the days are longer. Like I don't feel like I'm losing out on so much time. So that's just me. I actually didn't even tell you guys this, but I considered a week-long summer math camp this summer in Sarnia. So
I
Dr.
love camp.
Ball, yeah, it's like a week long. It's called an elementary teacher math lab. And
Very
it's like
cool.
a week long intensive program where you're, watching classroom examples and you're dissecting them. And then you're going to seminars after or workshops to strengthen your instruction. And to me, and again, not for everybody, but for me,
Sure.
that is inspiring.
Mm,
And I don't feel like in the school year I have the cognitive capacity for that learning because I'm juggling way too much.
nice. Now, this is Dr. Deborah Ball from University of
Michigan.
Michigan, right?
Yes.
And over in Sarnia, Ontario. That's very cool. So great shout out for that opportunity. I think too, there's definitely a different dynamic when you leave your, like you had mentioned, your network, outside your network, but it's almost like actually leaving your physical space of, like, say, your home, and going somewhere to do this thing and kind of get immersed in it can be really, really inspiring, meeting new people. It can also be a little bit scary for some, right? If you're doing it on your own, but it gives you this opportunity to kind of go and feel like something different is going on. You're outside of your regular routine and you're able to, of course, gobble up all kinds of learning there. Now, I want to shift it towards, around, let's say you wanted to pick up a book, and like, I guess I'm just being selfish and I'm thinking about myself. I am not the best reader, as I've mentioned before. And I say this, I know how to read, I'm very good at sounding out the words. I know all of those things, but I actually am not great at sitting down and opening up a book, because I also don't have a quiet mind like Yvette. So for me, it's very, very hard for me to sort of sit down and do those things. And when I do want to dig into a book, rather than me trying to pile it up like I used to do in university, where you knew you had midterms coming up and you go, I'm going to study. And then you put it off, you put it off, you put it off. By taking that book and by simply just, you can do it any way you'd like, whether it's a chapter a day, whether it's, a certain number of pages, you could literally just commit a certain amount of time to it each day. So whether it's 10 minutes or 20 minutes, like for me, anything longer than 20 minutes, like I'm risking falling asleep and, it's not going to go very well. But if I can look at it and I go, I've got this many days over summer, and if I could just stick to 15 minutes of reading every day, And then
Right.
the beauty is that if you do that, some days you might actually read a little longer, which is kind of nice. It's a little bonus, right? But setting the bar low for yourself so that you can commit really, really small amounts of effort. It doesn't take much to satisfy this goal you've set for yourself. And then the second thing I would say, just to make yourself have the most success possible, is by sort of creating yourself a little bit of an easy, this is from Atomic Habits, as we've quoted this book on the podcast many times before, but take that book or whatever it is that you're trying to do and put it in a spot that's going to make you almost bump right into it, right? So if you're going to plan to do this in the morning, maybe leaving the book right at the sink next to your toothbrush could be a good move, right? Hey, I brush my teeth in the morning, I grab the book, and then I do it. You want to make sure that you're setting yourself up so whatever plan you have, if you have this goal, that you're making it as easy as possible so that you have the greatest chance of having success. That's for our, we'll call it those who struggle with reading like myself. That's sort of my move when I want to dig into something. I definitely can't expect myself to do 2 hours of reading a day. It's just unrealistic. So set realistic expectations for yourself, and then make that goal really easy to achieve by, sort of creating these behavioral sort of helpers along the way so that you can check it off your list and get that positive boost, because you feel good after you've accomplished that task along the way.
Yeah, good tips for sure. And to keep talking about books and specific readings, is like, I know that some folks who know they're going to read a lot in the summer, they'll make the list. They're going to say, like, here's my stack of books, and it might be a combination of novels. It might be also say nonfiction books, and it's like, what do we read? And for me, specifically, like, the summertime has always been that place where I try to read something that's not, it doesn't sound like, it's usually a nonfiction book, but it's not in the world of education. So it's about psychology, or it's about behavioral economics, or it's it's about leadership. Like these are like, for historically, this is that time where I dig into that type of thing. But then usually when I dig into that type of thing, because my whole identity is wrapped up in being a math teacher, you can't help think about how the lessons you're learning in those books pertain to education in your classroom. So like, for example, like years and years and years ago, both Kyle and I read The Power of Moments. And it was about how to like create memorable moments for experiences, and why certain moments, stand out versus others. Like the mundane doesn't, you don't remember what you did on a Tuesday afternoon 3 weeks ago because it was the same. But it was like, how do I structure? What are the elements that structure memorable moments? And and the funny thing is, we had started the podcast, I think, before that we read this book, and I think that's why we picked the book up. We're like, this actually like has to do with where, what we're trying to do in math. And so those elements actually, like, we started to put those elements into our lessons because there were certain key properties that was like, this makes this memorable moment versus others. And we talked about them here in the podcast. We've talked about, other books that I've read in the summer, like The Coaching Habit was a summer read for me, which isn't a teaching book. It isn't a math book, but it was, say, a book about just coaching in general. And it was like, it's on our list of books. If you went over to makemathmoments.com/books, that's one of those books that we recommend, especially if you're a coach or a leader. We talked about the book Switch, which is about how to change when change is hard. That was a summer read, not a math book, not a teaching book, but we took elements of that and put it into the systems that we're working with while supporting coaches, supporting leaders, supporting school systems. So that's been my go-to move, is to like, what else out there now that I'm not thinking about school, what are these pieces in our world that we could then learn from and then bring them back to our world?
I think that maybe a way that I would blend your strategy with mine. So I think that what I heard is, and this is something that I'm not great at, is like those small commitments. I'm either an all in or nothing kind of person. Like either I devour a book in a very short amount of time, or I don't start it. But one aspect that might keep me accountable is my network, or people around me, or other people who are invested in that book. So imagine we could actually bridge our ideas where like we could have a book talk with people outside of our network, right? Like imagine something like that, where it's like, not only am I committing to this, focused time, but then I also have accountability, because I'm going to be connecting virtually or even in person, if you wanted, with people who are also reading this book. So it gives me this social aspect for the summer. It gets me maybe to meet new people, even if it was like you invite people, but ask everybody to invite a friend that maybe is outside of that circle. Because I think that at the end of the day, what we all want is to come back in September, maybe a little bit inspired, or just with a feeling energized to maybe try something new or do things a little bit differently. And that alone, it makes it exciting to come back. Like knowing I'm going to come back and I'm going to try to implement this new idea that I didn't have last year. Or I'm going to come back feeling like, well, I networked with these people this year and they've had these successes, and I've heard the success stories that they're having. Maybe I can replicate that success in my own classroom.
I like, there's two things that kind of jump out at me when you say that. Like the first one is, it sounds to me like, you had said you're either all in or all out. And I, on the other hand, am saying like, I'm pretty much all out mostly, when it comes to reading anyway, but not learning. Listen. And I think what I'm having this little mini epiphany is that you really have to look at yourself and really try to figure out like, who are you and what's going to be the best move for you in order to get you the outcome that you're looking for, right? And we talk about this a lot with our district improvement program, and we talk about all the districts and like, what is it that you are trying to do here? And I think that's really important. One thing I know for certain is that if things weren't working well, like let's think about why we're burnt out at the end of the year, right? You try a lot of things. Maybe you feel like systemically things aren't, working well in your school or your district, or maybe just in general. It could be the state or the province, the way things are going. Whatever it is, you're feeling exhausted because something wasn't working ideally the way you wanted it to. And if we don't do anything over the summer, the sad reality is that we're just signing up for the exact same thing again. Whereas if we can do little things along the way, getting inspired is sort of like, that's the thing that's going to take you and give you sort of that hope that we can do it better, right? Like we can do something differently. Like picking that thing that you're looking to try and affect change on can be really important for you this summer. And it can be really energizing as you do this learning, when you start to go, you know what, I think this is going to help. And by it helping, it's going to make the entire school year potentially be a whole lot better than maybe the last one. I think that's probably one of the key pieces for me that I'm kind of walking away with here is like, we have to decide, like, what are we willing to do in order to try to make next year better than the one that it was before? And it might have still been a great year. It might have been a successful year, but there's those little pieces that can kind of grind you down, and if we can hone in on those and look to get better in those areas, I think that's going to give you a really energetic summer. And I think doing that process will also make you feel more rejuvenated faster than, say, putting it off and keeping it in the back of your mind anyway.
Folks, that you were feeling, the pressure of the school year ending and looking to think about what summer is looking like. Our goal here today was to help you celebrate the wins, but stay grounded, grounded with what's happening. Also to give yourself permission about what your plans are for the summer and build a summer plan for restoration and renewed, your renewed purpose. And so we talked about some of those ideas that we use, and that you're probably formulating some ideas of your own. And also you probably have systematized this already. It's like, this is what I do in the summer, and I feel like it's really working for me. Whatever, like what Kyle's saying, whatever you do, honor it. And if you do want, say, to look a little bit more of some of the books that we recommend, you can head on over to makemathmoments.com/books. Also, for some of you who are thinking about that first week, what does that first week look like in class? Head on over to our kind of master resource around how to start the school year off right in math class. We've got a number of resources and goodies for you to take away there. So head on over to makemathmoments.com/start. That's makemathmoments.com/start.